hit record.
Great. Thank you. Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting of the Curriculum and Student Success Committee of the Portland Board of Public Education to order. It is September 8th, 2025, and we are meeting online in Zoom. I'm Julianne Opperman, Chair of the committee and District 3 representative, and I am joined by committee member Lee, committee member O'Brien, and I think we'll have, no, I'm not, and I expect committee Ali and committee Lena is here. Sorry, Maya. No. So with that, Dr. Park, you introduce your team?
Yes, I'll ask my team to go ahead and introduce themselves.
Hello, I'm Alice Buckley. I'm the Secondary Director of Culture and Climate.
I'm Alison Dame. I'm Director of Secondary Academics.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jesse Applegate. I'm the Senior Director for Special Education and Student Support.
Haley.
I'm Abdullahi Ahmed, Assistant Superintendent of Secondary Schools.
And I'm Haley Didrikson, Senior Director of Data and Technology.
We are now joined by Vice Chair Mondo from our committee.
Yes, thank you. I'm here, Miki Bondo.
And Usra.
Great.
Hi.
We sometimes, those of us who have meetings at 6 o'clock, are coming in like catching our breath on our way in and all. So, Dr. Proctor,
yeah.
I'm going to ask for public comment. I don't know if we have anyone. We have one attendee. And if you wish to have public comment, please raise your hand. And I'm not seeing, let me see the. And there are no other, our attendee does not wish to speak, I guess. And we will then close public comment and Dr. Proctor may begin.
Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Cheryl Proctor. I serve Portland Public Schools as the Chief of Schools and Academics. And this evening we have a set of topics to discuss. Let's see. And with that, the agenda items and the topics will fall as following. We'll do I'll do an overview of the presentation, and then we'll hear about the high school ELA and math curriculum, the grade 9 academies, post-secondary planning, advisory, graduation requirements, and high school data review before having closing comments and any questions. We touched on this briefly last week or not last week, but at our last committee meeting, speaking about the portrait of the graduate and speaking of, the key components that we identified as students being self-advocates, community builders, lifelong learners, skilled communicators, problem solvers, and prepared for success as the specific attributes that we're hoping that our students, when they come in during their kindergarten year and spend their 12 years with us and graduate from Portland Public Schools, that they rise to meet the characteristics that we've identified in the portrait of the graduate. And likewise, just like we have the portrait of the graduate, we have the portrait of the school community. And that reflects the conditions that need to be in place, again, for student success. So we want to make sure our school communities are rich, have rich and numerous opportunities for our students. They focus on building community. They offer challenging and meaningful curriculum, communities where the instruction supports each student and supports for each student's future plan. And that topic would be like the post-secondary planning that we'll be discussing. We want to ensure that we have adequate staffing, structures, and resources, a thriving staff, and also quality facilities. So who you'll hear from for the duration of this presentation is various staff members, and you're going to hear next from Allison about our high school ELA and math curriculum.
Good evening, everyone. So this year for our secondary academics, we're beginning our design phase to align high school curriculum. This is new at this time, in any particular subject. There's not alignment across our 3 schools in terms of curriculum. So this design work is kind of like the first shovel in the ground at the site. And again, like just to connect back to the portrait, I think of the portrait as our destination. So every given year, we're taking like a journey toward that destination. And so the work that I'm going to describe here really pertains to a challenging and meaningful curriculum and instruction that supports each student. And then more specifically, you'll hear me talk about emphasizing content standards, grade level, graduation content standards in each school subject, assessment that aligns to that curriculum and lets us progress monitor students and make sure that they're coming along with us as we do the work. And then supports to make sure all students can access the learning and do excellent work. So I want to take a moment and look at this language in the strategic plan. 2.1, 2.2, and 2.3 are all about achievement and really that tier 1 universal curriculum that we're expecting for all students. But the paragraph that describes each of them, and it's identical in all 3, it's just differentiated by grade span. The language is rich and really contains a lot. So the text says, support the use of high quality instructional materials that provide students with consistent access to grade level tasks and fosters high level of cognitive engagement by building deep knowledge of the adopted curricula, growing capacity to use aligned assessments to inform instruction, and building systems to respond to student needs. So when we begin this work in any content area for any grade span, we're really looking at like these interrelated parts, the actual instructional materials, the content, the way that it's facilitated in the classroom, which is going to either engage all students or not. Obviously, we're looking for high levels of engagement. And then what do the teachers need to learn? So that gets at the professional development. They need time to gain a deep knowledge of the adopted curriculum. And they need time to learn how to use aligned assessments to adapt as they see that student work and that student data coming in. And then finally, of course, we need systems to support those students. So this slide just takes that very same text and creates a graphic that we're hoping is a little stickier for people in their minds about those different components that we're considering each time we embark on aligning curriculum across the subject area. So we're starting with math, the high school. So what that looks like is we're going to have a work group that'll begin in October to meet monthly. We're going to meet twice in October. But after that monthly, and the work of the group is to define a specific vision of what high quality math instruction at the high school level looks like. So we're going to be looking at the nation and even internationally of what we know high schoolers, what helps high schoolers succeed in grade level math, and grounding that in our portraits, our instructional vision, and what we know is research best practice. And then we'll get to work actually vetting and piloting potential math materials. That obviously includes the curriculum, but we actually want to come out of this with a system that's going to have aligned curriculum, instruction, assessment, and support. So we need to be thinking about those interrelated pieces. And then we know that you can't just hand teachers some new instructional materials and practices and hope for the best, but we need ongoing high quality professional development. So we'll actually be planning for that.
So now thank you so much, Allison, for giving us the overview of, the plans for curriculum for high school. There are materials that the high schools are using, but again, as Allison said, we are embarking on an endeavor to align those materials across all three high schools. So I'm going to invite Pamela to speak with us now about ninth grade academies and the purpose and the benefits there.
Good evening, everyone. Um, so when we talk about strengthening ninth grade academies, what we're really doing is advancing the key conditions for success that we've outlined in the Portrait of a School community, which you just all saw. Dr. Proctor walked you through some of those conditions. So these conditions show up in very concrete ways in grade 9. So for instance, students need rich and numerous opportunities to explore, connect, and see themselves as part of the school. Right, they need a strong sense of community, especially in this critical transition year. So that's why we focus and emphasize a lot of support on grade 9. They also need access to challenging and meaningful curriculum paired with instruction that meets them where they're at and helps each student succeed. Beyond the classroom as well, we're making sure there's support for every student's future plan, whether that's college, career, or another pathway. And all of this depends on having adequate staffing, structures, and resources in place. That includes creating the space for thriving staff with regular and substantial time for teachers to collaborate, share insights, and problem solve together to better support students. So each of these elements work together to ensure that ninth graders start off very strong and on track. And then when we talk about deepening our commitment to a strong grade 9 academy, we're making sure the right conditions are in place to help every student succeed in this transition year. So we're ensuring that there is time for collaboration. So each grade 9 team has weekly meeting time built into their master schedule. This is protected time during the school day for teachers to work together on student success. With support from Schoolhouse Analytics, we're also reviewing our grade 9 academies across our 3 schools to identify strengths and areas for growth. And that data will really give us a clear picture and help guide our next steps for this year and moving forward. Leaders and grade 9 team leads will also be engaging with the Network for College Success through the University of Chicago's National Freshman Success Institute. Through this, we'll ground our practice in proven strategies and approaches based on what's been working well nationally, right? And ground in that. So it's all about creating the space, building on best practices, and learning from honest reflection, all in service of supporting a strong start for the 9th grade year, a strong start for high school.
And then
Right, and I'll just
our post-secondary success, yes.
I was going to jump right in, but did you want to say something, Dr. Proctor, before?
No, there are key components that we use to look at our ninth grade academies. And we touched on specifically, the ensuring that the schedule, that there's a dedicated ninth grade team of teachers that are able to collaborate around student success, student needs, student performance by reviewing data, and ensuring that there are dedicated times for them to do that particular work. And it really is about, what we know about the research that says that ninth grade success and is a strong indicator of a student's successful completion and on-time completion for high school, that it increases graduation rates and really supports students in not just getting to college, but persisting through for many years after. All right, we could continue on now with post-secondary planning, which has some kind of overlap or affiliation with some of that work.
So one of the pillars, right, of the Portrait of a School community is support for each student's future plan. So that's really what we're leaning into here when we talk about post-secondary planning. It's not just about making sure students graduate, it's about making sure they leave us with a clear plan and the tools to act on it. That means helping them with things like college applications, licensure, earning college credits, building resumes, practicing interview skills, or pursuing industry credentials, all of those things. And our commitment as a school community is to surround students with the right guidance and opportunities so that they can actually see their future path and feel confident walking it and walking into it. And we do that best when we learn and collaborate together. So teachers, counselors, families, and partners all pulling in the same direction for our students. So part of the work we're going to be doing in this is thinking about who's part of the team, and rethinking that instead of thinking it's just the counselor, but who else is part of that team.
And the work that we're doing with post-secondary success really hones in specifically on our juniors and seniors, so that they are able to develop a plan, identify their goals, and get the support that they need so that they can attain those goals.
So our goal is really simple. Every senior leaves with a clear plan for what's next, at least one application submitted, and FAFSA completed if eligible. Right. To make that happen, we're focusing on 3 key strategies. We're building school capacity so that staff can guide students through milestones, aligning programs and resources across the district, and learning from peers through the Rise Network, which we're partnering with to help us with this work. And now this ensures that post-secondary planning is consistent, equitable, and a guaranteed part of the high school experience across the board. So strengthening it across and making it strong. Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Okay. Our focus is making sure every student graduates with real choices for the future. That's really what's at the heart of this work. What we're doing is we're creating more consistent supports so seniors can explore their options, right? We are creating, right, strong secondary planning pathways from 9th grade up through 12th grade. But our emphasis in this work, as Dr. Proctor said, is in junior and senior year. And so really making sure that students are exploring their options, get guidance and take action. That means students will have structured opportunities to learn about different post-secondary programs, more help in navigating applications, and clear check-ins along the way. We're going to be using data to make sure every single student is accounted for and they're all getting supports and have a plan. So what we're doing is we're launching targeted activities to strengthen the post-secondary planning across all high schools. So we're kicking off in October with a post-secondary symposium for our post-secondary planning team leads. We're also adding monthly coaching for school leads and creating working groups that align with key strategies across all schools. So we're also monitoring progress through data check-ins looking to make sure how many of our students, right, have we met with, and how many have looked at plans, right? How many have completed an application to ensure that we're not missing any student along the way, and who can support us in supporting some of our students that along the way also. So for early benchmarks, our goal is that by December 1st, at least 40% of seniors have a clear plan and have submitted an application, with all students exploring multiple post-secondary options.
Thank you. Thank you, Pamela. And so we're going to ask Alice to join us and to talk to us a little bit about how advisory works in service of supporting our students as well, our high school students, and what the structure of advisory looks like.
So within all of our high schools, we are standardizing our advisory experience with the goal to create nested learning communities within the larger community, with the idea that the advisory being one of the first entry points for the high school experience. The idea behind this is that we're going to build school structures and staffing that support all students in belonging and being known well. Specifically, our well-designed advisory provides the how, acting as the primary structure for personalizing learning and nurturing the whole student. Again, the idea being that all students will have at least the one trusted adult that they know, and they have a small community of students that start as the smaller community to build out to the larger high school community.
Hey, thank you. And to
And
continue.
and so what this means across the district, when we talk about codification, is that we want to ensure through codification that all students are receiving an equitable advisory experience. And that equity happens through the codification experience, because we can ensure that is what is happening at one school is happening across the district. So our core components of the current advisory framework is that it starts with the teacher. The teacher is key to proactively building strong relationships through individualized student check-ins and group activities. All our advisory teachers have been provided with and will be, as I heard in the other committee meeting, that our level of comfort and expertise with running circles varies across the district. So we first have created a Portland Public Schools Circle protocol in support and collaboration with Cumberland County. And that's going to be used to build that a community building and restoration conflict kind of mindset within the advisory. All of our high schools will be using BASE, which is the SEL curriculum. They will all be teaching at least 2 BASE modules per month, so that all students, it is a tier 1 positive intervention to build those social and emotional competencies. All students will also be receiving 1 common sense digital citizenship lesson once a month. The idea, of course, behind that is to empower students to think critically, behave safely, and participate responsibly online. And one of the things that we're really excited about is that all high schools and middle schools will be not only taking attendance, but also students will be receiving a pass-fail for the grade base lessons. And one of the ways that we know students are and families are already taking notice of this and that it is having the desired effect is today when I was meeting with the Portland leadership team and the culture and climate coordinators. They were talking about they were tracking a Google chat where a student was saying, "Oh my God, I've got to get to advisory. My mom's going to kill me if I don't go, because they're taking attendance now. So advisory counts." So we have it out of the mouths of students that they now are beginning to understand that if we are dedicating time during the instructional day for advisory, that it has value and that we want them to attend. And this is how we are going to measure and report our progress on our advisory goals. We are going to be using multiple data collection systems. The first is through attendance and grades, and then also we'll be looking at school discipline and behavior. observation data that we are going to collect from our beginning of the year, middle of the year, and end of year district advisory walkthroughs. This is the first year that we will be implementing this. So we are being very clear with schools that this very much is a calibration year. This is not meant to be an I got you, but again, the road to equitable outcomes is that we first need to calibrate where we are as a district, because we know we have some schools that have very strong advisory or crew practices, and other schools who are just in the beginning phases of building a valuable advisory experience. We'll also be doing school climate surveys to capture perceptions of both staff and students on safety, belonging, and relationships. And then what we expect to how we're measuring whether we're being successful is that we'll see an increase in attendance rates, a decrease in discipline referrals and suspension rates, improvements in the key metrics on our school climate survey. We'll continue to gather data from both qualitative and quantitative, and also from our student surveys.
Thank you so much, Alice. And so now we're going to kind of touch base on just overall the graduation requirements and what does it look like for a student to complete.
Yeah, thank you. So our graduation requirements are, of course, driven by board policy, but just as a reminder, high schoolers need to accrue 21 units of proficiency, which based on our IC terminology is going to be more colloquially known as credits. But it's 4 in ELA, 3 in social studies, 3 in math, 3 in science and technology, 1 in art, 1 in PE, 1 in health, and then 5 based on student interest. We also are still connected to the state's guiding principles for main learning results. And I think that, if you crosswalk this with the portrait, you'll see that our portrait is really guiding us to more than cover the guiding principles that the main lays out in the learning results. Every senior completes a capstone project demonstrating research, presentation, technology integration skills, authentic project that they present in some form. And then per board policy, they complete an individualized post-secondary success plan, which the work that Pamela described before is going to make much more robust in the coming years.
Thank you, Allison. And then what does the data say about how we are doing with high schools? Haley?
Thank you. So, of course, it's really helpful to hear about these different initiatives that are ongoing and the sort of theory of change that if we do these various activities, the different outcomes that we hope to impact. And so this gives us a little bit of a baseline here. Some of these data should be familiar. They've been shared at other points, but just to kind of ground us in our academic data, starting with our ELA proficiency rates from last spring. When we look across our high schools, we do see some variation in reading proficiency. And so none of the high schools have yet met that 70% target district-wide. But we also see sort of a wide variation with a 17 percentage point gap between the lowest and highest performing high schools. When we look at the math scores from last spring, again, we see that there is a fair amount of variation across the buildings with a 14 percentage point difference between the lowest and highest performing high schools. So certainly we would hope to see these proficiency rates increase based on the wide variety of academic initiatives that are ongoing. Attendance is another important piece here. And again, we see a fair amount of variation across the high school buildings with the overall high school chronic absenteeism rate of being nearly 39%. And so again, hoping to see these numbers decrease as targeted interventions are put in place. Our suspension rates also vary. You're perhaps noticing a pattern here that we do see a lot of variation in our buildings across different outcomes. Behavior data in particular is a focus for the data team this year, so that we can have more nuanced data about behavior referrals and incidents happening in our buildings so that we can better understand the root causes. And we also just rolled out district-wide guidance for schools so that we can ensure that school administrators are sort of calibrated in how they're applying different discipline codes so that we can ensure that we have comparability across the buildings. This here, I thought would be helpful to share because it shows how Portland measures up in high school graduation rates compared to the state average. And you'll see the little black line next to the bars is the state average. And so we do see that for the previous year, we're still waiting on our graduation rates. For the most recent graduation rates, we're waiting on the state certification. But in this case, you can see that our four-year graduation rate is just 77%. We do see an improvement in the 5- and 6-year graduation rates. And so sort of one could argue that with some additional time, students are able to graduate. But in both cases, the state average is above Portland's graduation rate. And we do see a fair amount of variation when we look at the individual subgroups as well. I also thought it would be helpful to share some data from the National Student Clearinghouse, which reports on post-secondary education outcomes. And so as we look at student enrollment in college immediately after high school, so in the fall immediately following graduation, we do see most recently in fall 2024, there's a little bit of a lag on these data as well. We had 68% of students enroll in some kind of post-secondary education, either a 2- or 4-year institution. We do see a higher rate of enrollment in a 4-year institution as compared to a 2-year institution. But what I find personally very interesting when we talk about post-secondary outcomes is it's of course important to know whether or not students are enrolling in college. That's one indicator of academic preparation. But oftentimes the use of the persistence into the second year is considered a more helpful measure of academic preparation because a student may be able to get into college, but if they are not adequately prepared academically, they may not be able to succeed in and persist through college. And so we do see, so what this chart shows is it adjusts the denominator to the students that did enroll in college and then did they persist. But what I think stands out when we look at this chart in particular is especially for students who are enrolling in 2-year institutions, we do see a lower rate of persistence among that group of students. And then, of course, I would love to show you grades data. I know that is something that would be of interest to look at. And unfortunately, I don't have a good way to pull that information. And I wanted to share this little window into my world, into the back end of Infinite Campus, so people have some context for the challenge we have as a district when we talk about grades data. So this is just a little window. There's actually a lot more of these, but these are some screenshots from how the grades are set up in the back end of our system. And what you'll see here is that because we have different ways of recording grades across different buildings in our secondary schools, we have to have all these crosswalks that exist on the back end where there's sort of conversions that are happening to try to make the data comparable. The problem is that when you start adding in crosswalking, you introduce imprecision into your reporting. And so there's ways where you'll lose some nuance when you're doing this crosswalking back and forth. And it does make it very hard to sort of compare across buildings and to know whether or not, grading practices are actually consistent. So that's just like a little window into, I would love to report some grade data to you. And so we're sort of exploring strategies on the back end to try to correct for this inconsistency so that it can be more usable. But that is just a little context for you all.
And so, Haley, what I see that you're presenting in this slide is that there may be some buildings that are using a 4.0 scale. Some buildings are using a 100-point scale, and then some buildings are using A through F with A pluses, minuses, B pluses, minuses within their scale, right? Okay. And then what does that look like when a student transfers from one school to another, or when it considers reporting out for college transcripts?
I believe the conversion has to be done when students move between buildings. So that's part of where this conversion chart comes in. But my understanding anecdotally is that there's some manual conversions that are happening. And then as far as transcripts go, we do, each individual school runs their own transcripts using a plugin in the Infinite Campus system. So it allows for variation, but if you had two transcripts from two students from different schools, they would look different.
Okay, thank you. Well, just thank you so much, Haley, for sharing that information. Thank you, everyone on the team, for just covering and giving us a really great and robust overview of our high school programs and how we are building towards high school success. We talked about again ELA and math curriculum, that we're looking for stronger alignments. We talked about ninth grade academies as setting a strong foundation for our incoming freshmen to have success through their high school years by ensuring that they have a dedicated team of teachers, that there are meetings happening where ninth graders are able to check in and, stay and monitor their on-track status. We talked about the post-secondary success planning as a way for our other grades in high school to ensure that they are coming up with a plan, working with a team to devise exactly what it is that they hope to have available to them by the time that they graduate high school, and then to have regular check-ins so that they are meeting those goals. An advisory sets the platform for students to have a strong sense of belonging, a small community, a dedicated adult that they can trust and go to. And then we, of course, went over the basic high school requirements for graduation and some of the data that we are looking at. So at this time, I'd like to open it up for questions and turn the floor back over to board member Julianne Opperman.
Thank you, Cheryl. Maya, you have a question for anyone? And the last time we tried to do it in order. I don't know that that's where your question is in one of the ELA or the academics. Which section would it come from? You can do anything, but just let us know.
I have two questions. One is about advisory and one is about high school data.
Okay, go for it then.
Okay, my advisory question is, how are the advisors assigned? I know that Alice, you mentioned that part of the goal with advisory is making sure that students have a trusted adult in the building. Are they assigned an advisor in ninth grade and that advisor stays with them, or do they choose an advisor? Can you explain that?
That's a great question. And honestly, I'm still building my capacity for understanding that, because it does appear that it varies across the district. There is some looping that the students stay with the teacher for at least 2 years. Sometimes I think it may even be longer than 2 years. I don't think that is the case at Deering and Portland. As far as who all is assigned advisory, again, my understanding is it is pretty much all of the teachers as to keep the group small. But I will investigate and I can come back and bring you that information, as again, I'm just now starting to the school visits and learning about them. But that is an excellent question, and I will investigate and bring back that information.
Great, thanks. And then my data question for Haley is just about the different grading structures. There was one column that showed, the 1 through 4 scale. Is that like 4.0, like a 4.0 GPA, or is that the 1, 2, 3, 4 standards-based grading? Because I just know from my own teaching experience that a 4 really doesn't equate to a 100. A 3 really does, but then there's no way to sort of like explain that. So I'm just curious if the school that you're showing there uses which 1 through 4 are they indicating for that?
Yeah, you're spot on. It is the proficiency 1 to 4 scale. So this, yeah, it's not a perfect conversion, which is part of the problem of having different scales, because it's an imprecise measure.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Vice Chair Bondo.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I have a couple questions, but I'll try to combine most of them. So I will start with the curriculum. I know when I see that we are on the design stage right now, I mean, we never had a standard curriculum across all our high school. So I'm just wonder, the way we're doing now is that the way I followed my kids when they were in high school, I don't know if the still system, Alison, you may say, you may correct me. I mean, math teachers, they have the goals, they know how to reach the goal, but they're using their own different approach and strategies how to reach the goals. So each of the teachers, math teachers, they have all a different curriculum they're using across different high school levels. So now then we're going to design the new strategy to have the new curriculum, the standard curriculum for all the high school. So how did you see the teacher, the staff attitude? Because change is so difficult to accept, right? Because they've been doing most of the time the same thing, because it was mostly the comfort zone. So how did you see that? Because before designing anything and investing to new curriculum, I think we have to feel the temperature, how is working across educators. So this is for the curriculum.
Yeah.
Or you want me to state all my questions so you guys can go answer it?
Oh, no, we're going to answer. Yeah, we're going to answer. I'll let Allison go, and then I might chime in too.
Yeah, I will do my best. My daughter did pick that moment to start yelling my name. So, but yeah, to your point around like the change management piece, definitely like, and I think it's just human nature to value autonomy and to value choice. And our teachers have so much professional expertise that they bring. And so that is why we stretch out like a design phase to have a work group. We're very intentional about having a representative work group with our teachers who bring their knowledge base. But I think at the end of the day, where people can coalesce around is the student outcomes and the equitable student outcomes.
Excellent.
And right now, less than half of Portland Public School students can perform math at grade level. I don't think any of us can be satisfied with that. And so I think it is a little bit tricky, right? Because I've been in plenty of our classrooms. I've seen teachers dedicated, smart, excellent, and making gains with students right in front of them. All of that is real. But I think if we want to make change at scale, we need to coalesce and collaborate. And so that's the argument that we'll be making. But it's not going to be something that's handed down from on high. It's something that's going to be collaboratively designed with teachers in the room. And I could expand on this, but actually there's plans also around community engagement and parent engagement coming later in the year, but we're starting with our educators.
Yeah, thank you, Allison. I was going to really just underscore that messaging as well, that when we look at our strategic plan, our strategic initiative around the high school curriculum work, as with all of the work that we're doing in all elements of our strategic plan, it really is grounded in what we currently see in the data that tells us how well we are actually doing on behalf of students and in getting the outcomes that we desire. And when there are different practices in different schools, we also think about what does it look like for a student who starts off in one school or may transfer to another. If we don't have a consistent curriculum that they can pick up their learning where they left off in the previous school, it will also, present some challenges for the students to continue to matriculate through. So thank you for that question. And you had another question, board
I
member.
have a couple, so I have a three. So this is
Good.
I go to my second. My second is for the post-secondary planning. And I like the concept, but I remember last year I was during meeting students, and they've been always complaining about the planning stage, especially junior and seniors level. So I just wonder who are the key players right now? Who are the key uh, players who are supporting those students to the planning stage, and also about the caseloads, because it's so important. It's all educator, is the school council, is I just want to understand what's the key players around the support of the students to make those planning really smooth and inclusive. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Pamela, you're coming
Yes.
on.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that question. It's an excellent question. So for the most part, up until now, the people in the school, the educators in the school that were responsible for guiding students towards their post-secondary pathway were counselors um, at the high school level. And so I think what counselors would also, honestly share is they felt like, they were trying their best to try and make sure every student had a plan, but they were not catching every student because they're overwhelmed with the workload, the caseload that they had for the students they're supporting and the needs there. And so one of the things that we're right now thinking about is who should be, to your question there, who should be part of that team, right? So I will also back up and say that at some schools, they have had a more holistic approach in thinking about who's part of that team. So advisors are part of that team at some schools. And so like at Casco Bay, for instance, the advisor is part of that team. And so they're better equipped to make sure every student gets the support and has a plan going forward. Whereas in other places, advisory has been, as Alice spoke about, it hasn't been as strong and they're developing it. So those teachers have not been part of that post-secondary planning piece. One of the things that we talked about as we started off the year with the counselors is we invited, along with counselors, our extended learning opportunities coordinators, as well as our Make It Happen coordinators, because they've operated in silos as being separate departments, but bringing them in to understand that they can work together with a counseling team to make sure that every student is supported, right? So we're starting to think about who should be meeting on a biweekly basis to look at the student data, see which students are being supported, which student has been spoken with, has looked at options for graduation, is creating a plan, and who should be coming maybe to monthly meetings. Maybe they don't need to be there all the time, but it can come once in a while. So for instance, that would be external partners are like members of the Boys and Girls Club, because they are also external partners that support students. So how do we bring those people in to be part of that conversation as well to ensure that every student is really supported? So that's part of the work that we're doing, is to really think about who is part of that team. It can't be just counselors doing that work. And the key piece of that is using data. That's sort of the key. If we're looking at data and we have, a spreadsheet that has every single student accounted for, and we're tracking who has a plan, who has explored which plans, what are the milestones they need to meet, then we're going to be better off in making sure we support every student in meeting those milestones and having a plan.
All right, sounds good. So my last questions is on the, I saw the data absenteeism. I see some of the disciplinary, and we know for sure for being there for years, and I watched that disciplinary decision, which impacted a lot of, some of the group of our students, and we can say red flag, where they've been all the time suspended or be expelled for some disciplinary decision, regardless of different interpretation of different teachers. So I wonder some of those students may not qualify to the graduation requirements. And then, the way we know then students are moving here grade to grade by age, so they never do the grades. So I'm just wondering what kind of strategy we have to do to make up those missing grades for them to be able to qualify for college, because as I know some of those college, they have a lot of probation, student on probation coming from high school because of, failing and didn't have enough credit. I mean, they were not ready. So I just wonder if we are thinking about some specific strategies or few more those details, how can we make up on those students and get them ready to graduate?
Good question.
Good question. And so thank you. I'm going to start the answer and I'm going to invite the team members to chime in. One thing that we do offer is credit recovery for our students that are lagging behind in their on-track status for graduation for various reasons, whether it is attendance, whether it is, just grade attainment, they were not able to successfully complete a particular course. So with that, we offer programs to support students to graduate and to accelerate in their credit attainment if they are falling behind through credit recovery. There are also alternative programs that are available at the high school level for some of our students who need a different type of educational approach, but allows them to also stay on track for high school graduation and credit attainment. If there's anyone else on the team that has any other response on how it is that we work with our students who are falling off track because of attendance or any other concerns that may come forward in their academic lives.
I would echo everything Dr. Proctor just said, and just also say that counselors are very aware of ways in which the schedule creates opportunities for students to recoup credits by taking a course again. And so they're always doing that math, and including kids in those planning. That's something I definitely have witnessed. And then the final point I want to make on this is that your question, Mickey, I think really points us back to why we need to keep investing in this ninth grade academy work, because those teams can see a kid who's slipping really quickly because they are meeting regularly. And if they can get them back on track by the end of ninth grade, the statistics are really quite something in terms of how much that increases their ability to graduate on time. So it really is like a stitch in time saves 9. Oh, I mean that to be quite so cute, but so yeah, I would say that that's definitely, I think, one of the more proactive responses that we're building in.
One thing I do want to raise, and thank you, Allison, for noting how our students are able to retake courses. I've worked in a number of systems across multiple states, and I do note my surprise at the graduation requirements for only 21 credits. Seems pretty low stakes. There are schools in our high schools, students can earn up to 8 credits per year on a 4x4 block, for example. And if you do the math, 8 credits per year over the course of 4 years, is that they have the space and the capacity of earning upwards of 32 credits, yet only 21 are required for high school graduation. So that is also an entry point for students to retake courses that they were
Right.
not being successful in. But also there is an opportunity for us to look at how we can build some consistent practices around grading equity, and also making more robust our requirements for high school graduation.
Yeah. Right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you, Chair Juliana.
Okay, so Dr. Ahmed, and if you go first, and then Member O'Brien.
I was just adding to the support in place that also we have in all high schools. There are student support teams, or where the support team actually meets, and beyond that, actually after their ninth grade as well, when there is a student is slipping and having some challenges, then that the team comes together from social workers, guidance counselors, school leaders, so they come together and then talk about the students and how they meet the needs of the students. So the student support team is another structure that existed in the high schools.
Thank you, Dr. Ahmed. Caroline.
Thank you. When I just have a question about the advisory experience. At Portland High School, the afternoon path students don't have access to an advisory period because of the new schedule at Portland. And I wasn't aware of this, but with the grading, like now that advisory has grades and things, and as you mentioned, like attendance matters more now, how is that reflected for those students? Because I don't have advisory regularly. I think maybe on Wednesdays or something like once a month, I have a 10-minute advisory, but other than that, I don't have that period.
Good point.
Thank you so much for bringing that up. Let me talk to Dr. Ahmed and investigate that, because that should not be happening. But again, this is our launch and design year of this kind of codification of the advisory experience. And so we are learning as we're going. So let me talk with Dr. Ahmed, and again, I'll bring some information back, and hopefully we'll be able to rectify that.
Thank you. I also have one other like clarifying question. You were just talking about credits, and my knowledge may be incorrect, but I'm pretty sure that students at Portland High School need like 42 credits. I think the 21 thing that was mentioned in the slideshow, or maybe that you were referencing, was 21 units, which I think is a different increment than a credit would be. Because I'm fairly certain that I need far more than 21 to graduate, which I think makes sense with your confusion about just
Yeah.
21.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I should have
Carol,
clarified that math.
yeah,
But
yeah,
could
I can.
Allison clarify that if
yeah, absolutely. So at a certain point, we name them units of proficiency in the policy. They do compute to 2 credits each, so that comes out to 42. But I will say Dr. Proctor's point still stands. There is room in the schedule for students to repeat classes. That is true.
And we do need to bring to the committee the conversation about how do I say this? Again, building a consistent practice across all of our high schools in terms of credits, grading practices, and and also, ensuring that there's a robust curriculum for all students. Dr.
Dr.
Ahmed?
Ahmed, you had some comment?
Thank you, Dr. Proctor, and thank you, Dr. Opperman. And going back to your question about the advisory, yes, we recognize that there are students who are missing the advisory piece, and whether they are taking classes at the college or whether they are taking classes at the PATH in the case of Portland High, and for both to update them and give them the curriculum exposure that they need, as well as to exempt them when they are not there. It's something that we will be working with the principals, and they are aware of that. So I want to just put it out there to you that you are not marked like absent, and the curriculum that you're missing will be finding a way that you will get that learning and participation.
Great.
Thank you.
Any other questions before I ask a few? Okay, I'll try to go in a bit of an order with the academies. I guess on all of the comment or thought and what I'd like to hear back from everybody in some point in the year is how, as we do various changes, whether it's in the academies or it's in the curriculum, math curriculum or all, whether we feel like the faculty feels that they are just being compliant, or do they feel that they really are, having some level of cooperation, or do they really feel like they're collaborating on where it's going? I know not everybody can be in all the meetings, but that happens so that the ownership it goes across. And I think, Ms. Dame, I think your comment about the data showing, and perhaps as things progress in the committees for math particularly, it might be awesome to make sure the staff knows how you're doing, because it all of a sudden things appear to a staff. It's kind of like, oh my goodness, what do I have to do? But just as in my experience, in the ninth grade academies, I have to say that is an awesome thing in the fact that it can be across all ninth graders. In my experience, we had a small group that was together, had a small group of students that would have actually 75 students, but they were same teachers working together on cross-discipline to make sure that they were coming along as needed. And so that's, I think, is awesome. One of the things my thought is, I know at some point, ninth grade teachers talk to some eighth grade teachers or about who's coming in and all. And I wondered if beyond just talking about individual students, there's a real understanding for the middle school teachers, seventh and eighth graders, teachers, that in the curriculum in the seventh and eighth grade, that this is where we're headed in the high school. I just, the comment on siloing is so prevalent in education, whether it's the math department and the science department and the English department in high school. It gets worse and worse as you go away from kindergarten all the way up. So is anyone still doing that, talking to eighth grade teachers?
Yes, so the collaboration between eighth grade, ninth grade teachers is still happening. So we're continuing that. We have 2 sessions planned for this year, one in November and then one in March. And the idea is really to give educators dedicated time to come together, sort of as you hinted at there, to work in a structured way on what they need support with and what they're seeing in terms of students' ability and what support students will need. So in that collaboration, all core content teachers participate, along with special education teachers, multilingual teachers, school counselors, assistant principals. So they meet in their content area groups or departments, and they collaborate. So a vertical alignment in a sense.
Right.
And what they're discussing there is not only social emotional needs, like what eighth grade teachers are seeing, educators are seeing, and what ninth grade educators are seeing, but also in the core content areas, they're talking about curriculum as well. So we have our, for instance, our ninth grade educators bringing assessments or work that they're asking students to do. So eighth grade teachers are seeing, okay, I need to make sure my students are prepared to do that as they exit. So that's been part of the work that's been happening, and also discussions about what it means to be on track. We'll be strengthening that as we continue the work, but what it means so that students are exiting or being better prepared as they come to the end of their eighth grade year and enter ninth grade year. So that's, and that work has been something all the educators have really found valuable. So for instance, assistant principals also are meeting. And so they're talking about problems of practice, what they're seeing as behavior issues and how they're addressing it in high school, and what the assistant principals and eighth graders seeing. And so so that they're you're right, our high school assistant principals know what to expect or how to better prepare, or, like to put in place supports ahead of time, or to reach out to families or make a connection with students before even the transition happens, to strengthen that transition to high school. So we'll keep doing that. So we create an agenda, educators weigh in to make sure it's actually beneficial and it's meeting the needs of students. We do it in the fall, relatively speaking, timeframe, and then the spring. That's been the goal, because we do it in March. That's after students have been placed into their high school placements. So then educators can have that more impactful conversation, since they know who their kids are going to be and where they're coming from.
That's awesome. I think the more students are prepared in all ways to what's coming, not just do they know the math, or do they know the English or all, or what color paths they use to go to the bathroom, but some of those other things that it's critically important for them. One of the things on the academies, it was talking about rich, numerous opportunities, and something that I've heard people speak of, and it's out in the news again, is there any kind of pre-paths content? Caroline's in paths. It's been a good experience for you and for a lot of people, yes? Yeah. And so, that and also that kind of hands-on experience for all students, that I was guilty of it, and I'm sure other parents are guilty of wanting their kids, you will do in this highly academic path and go use your brain, etc. But what happens some options? So I just would want to bring some ideas onto that, if it's at all possible. Okay, try to be organized on this, so get all of you in the way. I'm glad to hear about the future planning is collaborative. I think advisory can be an awesome thing if it's done well. My member Lena brought up the point of who chooses which teacher has which student, and that's a big deal, I think, from my experience. And there is no perfect way, but I think, as thinking about who does connect and follow through, and who shows up to school, that's an important piece. And they're the wonderful advisory teachers, and then there's the cranky advisory teacher, and so we're all human beings. But that's a thought I wondered. Is it just strictly? I mean, it was alphabetical in my school. Caroline, did you have something to say before I say anything else?
Just on that piece you mentioned about paths, it's definitely on my mind, and I've been working or talking with Mr. Stilfen, Kevin, the principal at Paths, about making sure students are aware of paths before they're eligible to come, like in middle school, and underclassmen. Because in my case, and I think a lot of people, they're not aware of it until they're a sophomore and it's time to apply to a program if you want to do something. And so that's definitely something we're working on. And then, as you mentioned with the academic, most parents want their children to be in rigorous academics and will not, or don't necessarily make space for programs like paths. I think it's a piece that's important to me to talk about and to make more apparent that going to paths isn't like an either or scenario when it comes to higher education, because lots of path students continue on to go to college if that's what makes sense for them. And in my case, in the Careers in Education program, I'm earning credits through SMCC college credits that will help me when I get to school. So all those things are important to note, and I'm glad you brought it up.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Dooley.
Can I chime in there on that?
Oh,
That
sure.
would be at some point. Yeah, so that's thank you, Caroline. That was well said. So I just wanted to emphasize that in our redesign or rethinking about high school structures and systems and the experience students get, one of the things named, right, when we spoke to different stakeholders, and also, was written in our redesign as a design team was that all students should have that exposure to paths and that hands-on learning career exploration that happens at paths. And one of the things at last year we talked about was possibly with the principal at Casco Bay and Mr. Silfen was piloting possibly like a program where all the freshmen or sophomores get to experience paths at Casco just because they're in the same building. That would be doable, and everyone was really in favor of that. So we talked about having that happen. One of the challenges that's just it's hard to work around is the fact that Portland and Deering are not in the same location. There's transportation issues, there's just structural issues with schedule and all of that. So those are all things that are barriers that um, would be hard to push against unless we have, right, a building on when we're all on one campus, which is part of the goal if we get funding from the state. But those are all things that we value and we recognize are important.
Awesome. Dr. Abdullah, did you have something to say?
Yeah, you mentioned about or you questioned about the advisory and the experiences that the students may have from one classroom to another classroom, and the whole initiative of really the advisory and upgrading our advisory system from codifying and making a curriculum accessible and providing the teachers the supports that they need, and just and as well as also the accountability so that there will be equitable outcomes for our students. So the goal is just to work with the teachers to provide them the supports that they need, but and also to look at the data. We do not want to have the experiences from one school is different than the other one, as well as from one classroom to another classroom. But we need to get our students to get the the social emotional curriculum they need and the support that they need so that they can be successful. So the teachers are supported, but also we, all of us as adults, we need to keep each other accountable as well.
Thank you. I'm going to keep going unless somebody else wants to pop in with a question.
And I just want to note that we're at 8:40, and I know that we have this last segment, which is question and answer. We could continue to go, but I just wanted to raise that so that if there are any other questions. But go ahead, Julianne, we're happy to answer the rest of your questions.
Thank you, Cheryl. I think I just wanted to reiterate what Vice Chair Bondo said about, and also Ms. Allison, about the proficiency levels and all. And because if you look at what is meeting and or below expectations, it is where we have been. And I'm hopeful that all of your work, all of this planning and all of the cooperation, at least not just compliance of the faculty, supports that. It's not easy to turn things around, and it's going to take some time. But I think in the high school, the kids don't have any time, so that's a piece of it. And the Haley, yeah, that cross stuff, that must be nuts. Figure out. And a thought on that is because that dual way of looking at what is proficiency, or I mean, I guess the question is in standard-based education, how hard are we going to be pushing for standard-based education in particular content-based stuff, or are we just going to make sure that they pass a class? I guess those are the
Oh, thank you for that question. Yeah, I'm going to jump in and then I'm going to invite Haley. We do want to ensure that our curriculum is rigorous, that it is standards aligned, and that we are using really good measures to ensure that students are leaving our district proficient and thriving in a number of academic, social, emotional, and career-oriented areas. So, but it is important to have a standard following standards. There is someone that is Lacey Robinson, who is well and nationally known from the Standards Institute, states that there is equity in the standards. And when we do ensure that we are, the word of the day is codifying our practices to ensure that we have clear, consistent, rigorous practices across all of our campuses that ensure that we are giving great opportunities to each and every student in the areas that they're most interested in. There is also equity in that as well. So that is just one area just to answer that part. In terms of the data, and I think, Julianne, you were touching a little bit on the grading practices. How many of us are remembered back in the day when students would get zeros, right? And we need to make sure that we're consistently reviewing our practices around grades, that our grades are used in a way to give meaningful feedback to students so that they can continue to grow and make improvements, but also that there is equity in our grading practices across campuses as well. So I don't know if Haley, you wanted to speak to that data one more time to answer the other part of Julianne's question?
Yeah.
Or
I mean, I think all I would say is, practically speaking, it doesn't really matter what we use as a grading system, right? It could be ABC, it could be 1, 2, 3, 4. But we need it to be consistent, because by looking at those data and triangulating them with other academic sources, we can look at the predictive power of grades for other outcomes that we care about. And so really just having consistent data will allow us to detect patterns and trends that might help us to intervene before it's too late, and to ensure a student who maybe has gone off track can get the support they need. So at the end of the day, we can choose whatever we want, but I think from a data perspective, consistency is key.
I think you're absolutely right. And I think I want to make, as I went through all of those, oh my gosh, kinds of comments and questions for you all, I do want to say this was a fabulous presentation of incredible depth, showing a variety of information that really had us asking questions. And I think that's a really very, very important part of our working together on this. I'm not worried. And those of you who know me a long time now know that I will, keep asking, and Mickey will keep asking, and Maya will keep asking. And I do want to say the one piece on all of this that kind of underlies, whether it's an advisory or um, in ninth grade academy, or I hate retaking. I had a student take, by the time he was taking biology for the third time, I made him a lab assistant, because it just, he couldn't produce stuff, but he knew everything. So I think finding ways to support these students all along, so that they don't feel that they're embarrassed to come to school. I guess that's a big piece, I think, for some students. And I will let Mickey maybe have the last word.
Thank you, Chair. It's so hard to come after you, but I just want to echo and emphasize what you just mentioned. I've been on the board now. This is my third term, and I think I'm going to 7 years. And I've been always in the curriculum committee since I joined, because it was everything from the portrait graduate, everything about curriculum, everything about what we reach our students, the way where they are, and give them the best of the best so they can be successful. So far, this is a great curriculum committee. This is a great presentation. I just want to appreciate all of you for what you have presented tonight. Is really good. It's giving me a lot of hope, and then I think we're going to the right path. And I just want to say to Alice, I really appreciate the metrics on the attendance engagement. And I think it's just It's just the way to evaluate, to measure the outcomes on the way to go. And I think it's going to hold a lot of students accountable and making sure, you know, they can be attracted to the advisory and build some path there. So just thank you. Thank you for what you do for our public school system. Thank you.
Alice, you're going to have the last word.
Oh, thank you. I'm so excited about advisory. We are going to it's going to be an amazing thing.
Well, I am so pleased at all of your work, and we'll keep asking the questions, and we'll in a couple 3 months we'll say, okay, what happened? And so be ready for it, because that's the way we all are here. So thank you, everyone, for all of your work, and I am looking for a motion to adjourn. Anybody got one out there?
I move.
Oh, you move. I got to move, and Maya's seconding, and all in favor.
Yeah.
All right. See you tomorrow night.
All right.
Take care.
Good night, all of you. Good night. Good to see you.